Well, good Sunday morning, the last Sunday in the year and the month and everything. Hopefully, everybody will be jumping in here in a little bit. I'm going to turn on my other monitor over here, see if I can get anything going over here, see what I can come up with. See if I can search myself out here on that. See what we can come up with. Hey, I got a few people in here now. It's a Sunday grubby morning for me here. I hadn't shaved yet this morning. Hey, Dustin, how are you? Hey, Montana. Glad to see you in here this morning. Hey, Doug. Doing pretty good. Hope you have a happy New Year also, Doug. Yeah, I'm hopefully getting back to normal with our FedEx and everything. We've been now I'm getting to close out all these different things I got beeping on the computer there. Good morning. It's Miggery. I haven't heard that one. Yeah, we're getting back to normal. I've had a few extra runs we did today with FedEx, but we're getting pretty much back to normal, and hopefully we'll get back to normal. I'd like to be able to get back and not be in the rush situation that we've been in for the past few months. I mean, it's tough to just run at such a fast pace, and it seems like it gets faster every year. Maybe it's because I'm getting older every year, and it's the pace is tiring. I can tell you that. I mean, they work you hard during peak season. Peak season is different. It's really different because it takes its toll on you. It takes its toll on your drivers too. Your drivers have to be really, really good. Okay, you ran a company's auto parts from Fargo to Wilson during the winter storm. Yeah, it can be good money. Oh, you've been up for 2 hours. You're getting snow there. Oh, wow. Sometime you like to Google Hangout on YouTube. Well, we might have to do that, Doug. We might have to do that. I did that with RVT the other day. I don't know how many people know RVT, Red Viking Trucker. He and I did that a couple of days ago, and that works out pretty good. I like doing that on that Google Hangouts. It worked real good for us. I might have to try and experiment that myself, Doug. How are you, Ponca? Yeah, it looks like it'd be good fun and everything, and kind of converse with the people instead of just chatting, with the text and everything. You're able to have a couple of people and have a conversation going on there, and a couple different people can, several different people from different channels can jump in at the same time. Well, thank you, Montana. I hope it was informative. I try to, be informative about the trucking business, the parts business, and everything I'm doing. I'm just a simple guy doing a simple task and everything. You need to get your doubles and triples. Okay. Yeah. Scott, RVT, a Red Viking. Yeah, he's a hard worker. Evidently, he likes to drive. I don't know if I would want to drive as hard as I know I wouldn't at my age, and I'm just I've put several million miles on the road, and I'm at the point in my life that I want to back off of that. Used to be when I was young, I was the first guy in a truck. I mean, when I was working if you can look over my shoulders, you see the Carolina Freight trucks up there. That's where I started in trucking, was at Carolina Freight. uh, back in 1967. I started there as a dock worker and then a yard switcher. I was still in high school. Uh, I did that while I was in high school, and then uh, I got hired on as a regular at Carolina Freight. And then after I worked on the yard for several years, when I turned 21, I got my chauffeur's license, and they let me drive local with them. So I drove local and worked on the yard both there for about 10 or 11 years, and until I moved on to some other things. I guess I got a lot of information. I've got a lot of experience. When you get, age will give you a lot of experiences and everything. I know I can probably, I can give you some information. I hope it's informative to everybody that taps in and wants to hear me ramble on about the trucking business. It's been the biggest part of my life. I was raised in a trucking business. My dad drove 38 years for Carolina Freight. And so that's all I knew as I was growing up. We actually lived just a few houses down from where I'm at right now when I was young. And Dad was working at Carolina Freight. And it kind of brings back good memories and bad memories because my dad had a bad accident while we were living on this side of town. And he was laid up for about 4 or 5 months after that accident, and about got killed in a truck. And so that has mixed feelings for me, knowing, remembering that as a young child and everything. And of course, I didn't know the impact of how bad my dad had gotten broken up in a truck wreck. But that was, it was apparent to me after the fact. I was just glad to have Dad home as a child when, Dad was a line haul driver and at the time, and he made the decision to go on to being a local driver after he saw that he was off and gone with away from his children. And I think the fact that he got back home and he had all 4 of his boys at home, and he realized he wanted to do that. Okay, you and some other guys do. I might have to jump in there one day. Then just let me know, inform me, Doug, and I'll jump in on your Google Hangouts, and we'll all go live at the same time if you want me to. My nose is itchy. I'm trying to read some of this at the same time. Lewisburg. Yeah. We call that our Harrisburg, Pennsylvania hub's what they call that. Yeah. I've driven into there several times. I got caught in a big snowstorm up there at Harrisburg. My brother Perry and we had run a sort of a triangle run for him, and ran from Charlotte to Memphis back up to Harrisburg. And when we got up to Harrisburg, we thought we was going to be able to just keep moving. And they said, no, you're going to have to lay over till in the morning. Well, I knew there was a pending storm coming through and everything. I knew about a pretty good sized storm that's coming in. And I said, oh, well, I guess we have to do what we got to do. So I waited till the next morning. When we got up the next morning, we were covered in snow up there at Harrisburg. And Perry and I, it was a bad storm. The roads weren't clear at all. And we made our way back down to, of course, then I think it was still RPS then. I don't even think it was FedEx then. And we made our way back down to Charlotte out of that snowstorm. And it was tough sledding. And we were sledding. I remember a couple of times we had to stop and get the ice off of our windshield wiper blades, and because the entire mechanism froze up on us. So yeah, it was a tough road to hoe. I don't particularly like those kind of situations. Well, actually, there wasn't so much Scott RVT. He I think had misread something on there about, and he and I talked about it offline. Because I was sort of confused when he was talking about it, and he was kind of mixing something that they're going to do for the package vans and along with the trucks, and it wasn't anything for the line haul, because he kind of caught me off guard too. I didn't know, and I actually asked him offline what he was speaking of, and he told me. And I said, "Well, no, I think you got that confused, Scott." I said, "That's the package vans that you're talking about there." And he said, "Oh, okay." He said, "I thought it was something to do with the line haul, and it wasn't. They've changed a lot of the dynamics of the package van guys, and they are treated a little bit differently. They have to bid on their contracts differently and a few other things. In line haul, we're not subjected to that. So it was a little bit different." Well, hey, Chris, how are you? Glad to see you jump in here this morning. I haven't seen any of your newer projects lately. I've been so busy with my projects. We over here at the Napa store, we have gotten a huge amount of shipments. I've had well, what we did, we applied for and got a setup and a loan and everything through Napa and through Bank of America, and we're expanding the shop, and we're putting about $500,000 more inventory into the store, and they have swamped me with shipments. I have got the garage bays, everything completely full right now of shipments, and that we got to clear up and everything. We've been building shelving and everything else back in the back, and trying to get ready for that Napa's supposed to, the Napa corporate's supposed to come out Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday and help me get this shelved up and looking good. And we're trying our best to get it and squared up. Hey, JC, glad to see you in here. I saw that new trailer you got. I like the looks of that trailer. It's pretty neat looking. I'd like to have something like that to pull containers, get some container trailers. I'm going to look for something like that to pull some container trailers up here. And I found something, JC, I need to talk to you probably offline, that the guy that actually is right in front of my shop down there, I knew he did the insulated panels and everything for these indoor, these great big refrigerated units like what you see in Sam's and all these other big stores. But he's got some interesting stuff that you may be interested in. I'll talk to you off channel when we get a chance. Yeah, I know everything for the right price. Yeah. JC's got a right price on everything. But yeah, getting back to the trucking and everything. Yeah, I'm glad it's slowing down a little bit. It's had me pushed to the limit, just about, where I'm getting back to a calm situation now. I'm trying to get down to Savannah, and I've got several drivers wanting to meet with me in the Savannah area, and we're going to be hiring a good many drivers in Savannah. So if you know of anybody who wants to relocate to Savannah, Georgia, has their doubles endorsement, a year experience, and a clean record. I failed to mention that the other night. I think I was talking with RVT, and I didn't mention that the primary things they need is, like I said, doubles endorsement. I need a year's experience, need a clean record. The driving record has to be good. And they need you got to, like I said, you have to have the experience, 1 year's experience within the past 3 years. And then you're in pretty good shape. Oh, Chuckleberry's in the house, is he? All right. Chuckleberry's or you might get away from the cold had you one day, Montana. Well, Montana is definitely a cold place, isn't it? Yeah. Well, I hope the sale was good for you yesterday, JC. Was that trailer wasn't from that particular sale you went to yesterday, was it? Oh, good gracious. Yeah, you only got the trailers. Didn't get any trucks. They sold. How bad was that? How bad did that Cascadia go for? If you said it was a 14 or 15, I figured it went close to 50 then, didn't it? 45, 45 to 50. There. Oh, it was a Cascadia tomorrow. Yeah, those Cascadias, they're holding their own pretty good down here. They're running. they're the Cascadias down here have been holding on. I talked to my salesman that I've got that works at Freightliner and works at that division of Select Trucks. Select Trucks. That's actually a division of Freightliner, and they talk about how the Cascadias are holding their own. Pretty good. Yeah, yeah. Those Cascadias. That if it's a 15 or 6, if it's DD50, you said it was a day cab. A lot of those day cabs have DD13s in them. I don't know if I hadn't seen many of the day cabs with DD15s, but that's would be the way to pack them is to, if you could order it with a DD15. I'd rather have a DD15 than the DD13. Although, if you're on flat ground, some of these guys have got DD13s and seem to be happy with them. I don't know. I don't know how much the longevity is on those. It's listed as a DD15. Well, that's good. If it's a day cab with a DD15, I guess it was a tandem too. It wasn't a single axle. The square body barn, is that Chuckleberry? What's it showing there on I'm just trying to figure it out myself there. Uh, but we've had a busy week, like I said, getting all these shipments in. We've been uh, it was for farm use grain dump. Okay, well, they probably had a DD15 in it then. Now, Captain Jack, I don't know about that. You never know what FedEx has got in mind on certain things. The FedEx ground model has been the most successful for them. We make more money than Express and Freight put together, I guess. I mean, we're the glue that's holding that company together. I can tell you that. You look at this the different stock reports and everything else. FedEx Ground's growing, and it's the one that makes them money. FedEx Express, has a lot too. I mean, FedEx Express is the original company, and I would imagine that they've seen how good the FedEx Ground model works, and between it and Freight, they would probably like to modify that and in coming years. I don't know myself personally. I have not heard that completely. I'm speculating at this point. That's me as an inside person knowing what I know, that I think that that would probably be the smartest move for them to make. Now, whether they do that or not is that's strictly, this is just like I said, it's purely speculation on my part. It's nothing that I've heard. It's nothing that I've felt or seen or whatever that it would indicate that. But I mean, uh, when you look at everything, it would only make sense to me if I were going to move. If it were my company, if I were Fred Smith going forward, I would try to make it go toward that model more than I would the other ways, because it is the most profitable. I mean, you think about it, all the equipment that you have and everything that you're paying for and that you're having to lay out on, and and the way they expense everything, that it's way more profitable for them to go in the model of the FedEx Ground than it would be the FedEx Express or FedEx Freight, because they're not subjected to buying all that equipment. I mean, you're taking one big facet of it, and you're having your independent people buy that equipment. You mandate what kind of equipment, what size equipment, how much equipment that you need from each individual or each entity that you hire on, and then you're controlling a lot. Now, there's good points and bad points about it. I mean, even on my end of it, I mean, it's good for me because I'm backed by a very major company. I'm able to the one great thing for me, I never worry about freight. Whereas a lot of people worry about the brokers, they worry about getting freight, they worry about routes, locations, everything. I don't have to worry about any of that. Uh, the routes are already set for me unless I want to do something extra. So I'm doing dedicated routes every single day. So I know how much I'm going to be making every single week if everything runs. As long as I'm able to maintain the drivers, as long as I'm able to maintain the equipment and everything runs smooth, then I've got a set amount of money that comes in weekly. I'm not up and down like so many people in the trucking industry. I mean, a lot of people in the trucking industry are up and down because they don't have the consistency of knowing exactly where they're going every single day, and that sort of stuff. I mean, some people like running wild. Some people like, well, I like to do something different. That's fine. If that's your mode, if that's your train of thought or whatever, and you want to go different places, that's fine. It's just not for me because I'm trying to look at uh, the longevity, the consistency, and the fact that you know if I have set payments that I have to make, so I know exactly how much revenue is coming in each and every week, and then if I can base it on that, that's great. Now, some people may think, well, you do all this extra stuff, you can get extra, but there's the downside of it. Some weeks it's great, some weeks it's not so great. So I like sort of a level playing field, and I like to move up in plateaus more than I do, jumping up high and then going down low. I mean that kind of situation is tough on you financially. So I want to be consistent. Yeah, that's right. Like Chris said, it makes a lot things a lot less volatile. Yeah, and consistency is efficiency, like JC is saying. And it's you heard that USPS was late. And I doubt that. That's the government. Uh, that they were modifying. Oh, Captain Jack, you work for Express. Okay. Well, now see, I haven't heard it on our side, but if you work for Express, you know what I'm talking about, Captain Jack. Uh, you know that the model that we make, and you're privy to the stock reports just like I am and everything. I have stock with them, and you can see what makes money for FedEx, and FedEx Ground is the most efficient out of all their organizations, all their entities that they have. FedEx Ground is the most efficient between FedEx Express, FedEx Freight, uh, Custom Critical, all the rest of them. FedEx Ground is the most consistent and the most efficient division of FedEx. That's why you're seeing it growing with leaps and bounds. And, Express has to compete differently. And of course, they won't let me buy a 747 to fly, so I'm not going to worry about ever being on the FedEx Express side there. I don't, and I don't think they ever will contract anything like that. I just think it's too big of a thing. And they've got, if you ever see FedEx Express, I mean, they're amazing to me, and to be able to fly these planes all over the United States and have them in the marketplace at the time they're supposed to. Even if J.C. Smith has to wait till 12:30 instead of 12 o'clock for a package. uh, a couple of months ago, or a month or so ago, I was sending a title up to J.C. Smith, and J.C. got online knowing that it had to be there for 12, but I think it was snowing that day and everything else, and he got his package about 12:20, and of course, it tied up most of his morning, I think, that day. But when you think of the reality of that, even that, I mean, I mailed it here from Cherryville, and it was on his desk the next day at 12:30. It blows my mind that one package that had a title in it made it that quick and got sorted through everything it gets sorted through, and makes it there pretty much on time. I think he was about 20 minutes late to JC from what the normal would have been. But I still, it amazes me. It amazes me that happens. And I mean, because we mailed it like 5 o'clock in the afternoon. It was in Ohio at his desk at 12:20 the next day. And you think the magnitude of that, and around the Christmas holidays and everything else that's going on, and snowstorms and everything else, is pretty darn amazing. Yeah, I know. You pick up something at 8 p.m. in Miami, and it can be delivered in Seattle at 7 a.m. I mean, and yeah, you can pay the extra. I just didn't pay the extra to get JC at 10 o'clock. I made him wait to 12. But I got my FedEx discount anyway. It didn't cost me quite as much as it would have the other guy. I think I spent $9 and something to get it up to him. And I think that package, had I not been an FedEx employee, would have cost the average person about 15 or 16. I think, I don't know. There are some advantages of that. But, it's, looking at the freight business, and looking at what everything's going on, it's still amazing to me. I mean, that we can move the amount of freight that we move as quickly as we do and get it to the people. I mean, this Christmas holiday thing it boggles your mind. If you've ever had the privilege of being able to go to a FedEx facility, a UPS facility, or anything, and see what all goes on. You see all the conveyors. You see, I mean, you go to our operation in Greensboro, North Carolina. It's huge. It's a huge distribution center down there, and the buildings stretch, gosh, almost a mile, 3/4 of a mile, but between one end of the building to the other end of the building, and then they go down these different. It goes down straight down one big area and then down another. And it's got all these different side coves or areas that it goes down to, and they loading into the trailers and loading into the package vans. It is amazing to see all this go down. I mean, I just have one small part of it by pulling the line haul trailers in and out. But I mean, even that, we have everything fixed to go at certain times of each day. And we're meeting like what we call we used to call them butt heads, but they thought that connotation of that was bad. But I'm, for safety's sake, I still call them butt heads. It was a place we butt or meet points, what they call it now, I think. But I have trucks that go from like, if I'm meeting the ones out of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, we go to Lexington, Virginia. I've got a couple of trucks that do that, and we leave out early in the morning. We leave out about 4:35 in the morning, and we'll be in Lexington, Virginia by 9 o'clock, and then we turn around and go straight back to Charlotte, and then we're back in Charlotte by 2 o'clock that afternoon. Then those packages are being sorted. Those packages that were picked up and sorted overnight in Harrisburg, they can being picked up all in that area, in the Harrisburg, Pennsylvania area. Then they're being sorted that afternoon, the next afternoon in Charlotte, being distributed either into the Charlotte area or other areas that are based into that hub, which would be one more day. But still, to have all that done is it is a feat within itself to see all these packages, because I grew up in the LTL business, is like I was showing people, the Carolina Freight business. I grew up in that business, which is a lot slower. LTL business, I mean, they're looking, you're looking 5 to 6 days to sometimes getting an LTL shipment, and they don't worry about it as much. I mean, they'll let stuff sit on their dock. I've got some shipments coming in through Southeastern Freight Lines, and they couldn't get it out to me in time yesterday. Well, no, Friday. And I said, well, can you schedule it for Monday? Oh, well, we got a skeleton crew Monday. We'll get it to you Wednesday. So there's something that was on their dock last Friday, but they're not going to get it to me to next Wednesday. And of course, they offered me to go down and pick it up. I said, well, I'm paying for this freight. You're sending out 6 pallets, 6 or 7 pallets of merchandise. I'll let you deliver it. I'm not going to do your work and me not get paid, have me to do half your work. So I'm going to let them go ahead and deliver it out from Charlotte on back over here. So that's some of the stuff you get into. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the USPS, they in my opinion, and I have a little bit of inside information there too. My brother, just older than me, is a retired postmaster. So, I have, I'm a little bit privy to the information that comes from the Postal Service also. And my brother D, he worked about 30 years with the Postal Service and was a postmaster, local postmaster at a couple of different places. And they're efficient getting it out to the people once it gets to their location, but their hub and spoke type situation, they're moving their freight is not as efficient. And that's one reason they rely on UPS and FedEx to get some of the bulk stuff. If a lot of people, if you do your tracking, you'll see where maybe your freight has gone 90% through FedEx, and then FedEx goes through what they call their Smart Post. And if you ever see the Smart Post on it, that's a division of FedEx also. That gets delivered from Smart Post, means it goes to the post office. Basically, it is then delivered to a courier that delivers it to the post office, and then the post office delivers that. Well, hey, Matt, glad to see y'all that you made it in here. Oh, you're not too late. You're just on a different time zone. Yeah. Yeah, we're talking about the good old freight business and everything else. Well, they've been doing that, Ponca, for years. FedEx actually gave Fred Smith gave, I forget how many millions of dollars he gave to the postal system that actually helped stimulate some of the postal work, and to be able to put some of the boxes in the FedEx boxes in the post office. So if people wanted to FedEx something, they could do it right there from the post office. And UPS has done some of the same things too. I mean, both of them have been competing for the postal services work, and believe it or not, we FedEx and UPS both do haul a lot of the backhauls and the heavy loads for the postal system. Now, the postal system still does a lot of their own too. I mean, or I think a majority of it. But there's a lot of this that people don't realize that does go through UPS and FedEx. FedEx especially, we have our what they call the smart post, and then of course mailbox, etc. What used to be got bought out by UPS, and that division changed, and a few things like that. Well, hey Tim, glad to see you in here. Well, the postal system is different. I mean, they are mandated. I mean, if they were able to be run, and this is my brother's opinion, because he, like I said, being a postmaster, if the postal system were allowed to run as an independent contractor, he always felt like it would be a lot more efficient. But they are regulated to do so many inefficient things. I mean, if you live, 40 miles into the rural area of some part of the country, and you're 30, 40 miles away, they still have to deliver a package or an envelope to you on a daily basis, regardless how far out and how inefficient it is. So they are mandated by Congress and everything to sort of like the rural electrification rule that came down years ago too. Certain things were mandated, and it's good that the government did that because it helped things move forward. Now it costs the taxpayers. It costs, anytime you're doing things like that, it costs, but it does make the entire United States more efficient. And knowing that you can, put a letter in the mailbox and that it's going to get to point A, point B, way off somewhere, Oh, your brother's a city carrier. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, the rural carriers are usually independently contracted. Well, not independent. I don't know how they work it exactly, but yeah, most of the rural carriers use their own uh, vehicles and everything, and they're paid for the vehicle. One of my drivers I had years ago, he was a rural carrier, and I don't know all the ins and outs of that, but I think they're bidding on that process and doing things like that too. But uh, you know, when we sit back as a nation and think about what we've gotten and how efficient we are, I mean, everybody, of course, with the internet and everything, we get complacent, and we want instant gratification. But think about it. We're getting it. I mean, think about what we're doing this morning. I'm conversing with a lot of people across the nation, and they're able to see me. Not that that's a great thing, but anyway, they do. They're able to see this old mug and talk with me, chat with me, and do it on a one-to-one basis. Back and forth. I'm able to see what everybody's saying, and everybody else is seeing the conversation too. They're able to hear me, and that in itself, technology in itself is amazing. I mean, to see what I have seen over the years, and I mean, I'm not the oldest guy in the world, but I mean, to see what has happened in my lifetime. Uh, when I grew up, I mean, we had TV with 3 channels. That was it, 3 channels. I remember we had an ABC, a CBS, and an NBC. No, see, was it CBS? Yeah, those 3 channels when I grew up. And then we had to get our ABC channel from way off. It wasn't even in the Charlotte area. And then finally, Charlotte got an ABC channel, and the one in we had 2 in Charlotte and 1 in Asheville that we picked up on. And then if you had a good antenna, you could pick up on another CBS in Greenville. And that's you had 12, only 3 worked. Yeah. Yeah. But you think about that, and now you think about what we have. I mean, we've got more channels than you can ever. I mean, I've got the Dish Network, and out here at the dealership, I've got Spectrum. I've got more channels that go unwatched than I ever watched when I was a child. I mean, I can scroll through the dial. I don't watch everything. I mean, my wife likes watching HGTV, and then of course I get irritated with some of these reality shows and everything else. But to think about how efficient we are in comparison to freight. Just if I go back to the freight business, I mean, I remember my dad when I was growing up. He would go from here to Philadelphia and back, and you're talking about several days. And now we don't even think about it. We can turn a Pennsylvania trip one day, but it used to be. I mean, they were going. You think about it. My dad came up without the interstate system. The interstate system was not built until, basically, it's Dwight Eisenhower is the one who implemented the interstate system. And, in some places you'll see where it says, the Eisenhower interstate system. And, thank goodness we built an interstate system, and we built it at the time we did build it because we didn't have to go through all the environmental things. Think what has happened environmentally, and think what has happened, all these different transportation problems that we used to have. We used to have to go through every single town, and every town that had 12, 15 stoplights, or if it's a small town. If it went to a large town, I mean, you're talking a huge amount of stoplights you had to go through. And you had to route yourself. You'd want to go on. It used to be, and you still see where it says truck route, but it used to be they primarily had, even the rural routes would be located as a truck route because they didn't want the big equipment on some of the small roads, and 2, you didn't want to be hit up with all the different cities. And then cities early on, before the interstate system was built, would make a bypass, what they would call. And then what that changed the dynamics of towns and everything. Everybody tried to locate out on the bypass because that's where most of the traffic was going. So towns would, you throw up a bypass, and then next thing you know, that bypass, instead of being sort of a freeway around the town, would end up having 15 stoplights too. And until the interstate system came along, back in the, I think it started in the late 50s and got going good in the 60s. I mean, I remember as a child, I-85, I remember we could get on I-85 and drive it for a few miles, and then we had to get off because it wasn't completed. But they would open up small sections of it at different times to let you drive on it, and once they completed it, which is pretty neat. And I got to set up. I'm about to slump down too far in my chair. But if you think about these situations with the interstate system and the trucking system and how far we have come, it's amazing to think of the progress that we've made and the progress that we're still going to make. Of course, now a lot of people want to get into thinking about autonomous vehicles and what it might do to the trucking business. And I really don't think that that's going to be the first thing. The first thing is happening, and we're already doing it within FedEx. They're going to have the more efficient trucks, whereas they're going to have the trucks that have the collision avoidance. And to me, that's not a real bad thing. I actually had a truck that was in a bump up this week, and it's going to cost me a fortune because of the way the insurance is rated now. When you're doing when this girl that drives for me, she couldn't get stopped in time, so she bumped a pickup, which bumped another car. She was on I-26 going south, and traffic came to a complete halt, and she couldn't get stopped in time. And it happens. It happens, and it's dangerous. And she almost got stopped. She just barely hit a truck, but you barely hit her truck who hits another one in front of you, and the chain reaction and the problems. It's tough. But that being said, I would buy a Tesla. You're talking about Tesla there. I would buy Tesla semis in a heartbeat if they would show to be proficient and efficient. And one, if I could get them charged on my routes and get it done right, I'd be buying those Teslas tomorrow. I'd be lined up with the rest of them, because I would love not to have to deal with, heater hoses. I'd love to not have to deal with turbos, and I'd love to not have to worry about the emissions. Those three things right there in itself would sell me on a Tesla. Now they're saying that they're going to go 1,000,000 miles with no maintenance. There's not a truck out there that's going to be no maintenance. I don't even care if it is a Tesla. But if a person could get these trucks and they could get them and have a fleet of those, I think you can make some money. I mean, if the price is all right. But what scares me is I'm afraid they're going to get into a situation that they're only going to lease them only, and then they're going to want you to turn them back in after a certain amount of mileage, and you'll just basically be renting one. That's my fear, because if you think back in history, that's what GM did with their first electric cars. They went out there and the EV1. You can kind of go on YouTube and see that. And all these people had these EV1s, the ugliest thing I've ever seen. But people that had them loved them. And then GM made them turn them back in, and they crushed them. They crushed them, got rid of them. And people were all upset with that. Yeah, that's exactly right, JC. A maintenance-free truck that's a truck that I've got a couple of those. They're sitting in the parking lot. They're maintenance-free. I got an 08 Mac that's completely maintenance-free. Hadn't bothered me in years. Of course, it hadn't moved any. And that's what you get. It's things have got to be you got to or yard art, like JC. Yeah, JC, you were privy to being able to see some of my yard art. A couple of Volvos, a couple of Macs, a couple of things like that are yard art. And if you're in the trucking business, you're going to have yard art. Either that, or you got way more money than I've got, because you're going to have some yard art, and you're going to have to be able to borrow from Pete to pay Paul on these different trucks. We wreck some trucks, and we use the trucks. You take the salvage and keep the salvage best you can. No, I don't think so. I mean, I've seen some reports on that Tesla truck, and even I'm trying to think. There's another one that's got a other one, but the secret part is Freightliner, and some of these others are working on that too. Now, when Freightliner gets the electric, that's when I think it's going to, when that hits the fan, when that stuff gets on the market, that's what's going to be big, because they've got the production capability to put the trucks out way more than Tesla does. Tesla has got some of the technology, and I don't know how, I mean, these major companies, I don't know if they've shared some of this, and I think Tesla has shared some of it. I mean, he's not afraid to share some of his technology, but when somebody that can ramp up the production like a Freightliner, and Freightliner basically, I always consider Freightliner to be the Ford or Chevy of the car industry. That's what they are. I mean, they're not going to have the high end. Some of them like Peterbilt and KW and some of the others. They put a more high end truck out there, if that's what you want. And if you're an owner operator, so be it. That's great too. If you're looking as a fleet owner, you're probably going to stick more with Freightliner, because Freightliner, they can pump out the trucks, and there's good points and bad points with that. I mean, you're probably not going to have the nicest piece of equipment, although I like my Cascadias. These Cascadias that I've gotten in the past few years, they're nice trucks. But you get I'm not a big Volvo fan. Volvo is I've had some Volvos, and I have a older Volvo that I made into a wrecker. That's pretty good old truck. But there's a lot of situations with these electrics and everything coming down the pipeline, and I think more and more people will get it. The problem I see is the infrastructure on not fueling but charging these trucks. I haven't heard what they're going to be charging, how it's going to be done, and the other thing is the taxation of the roads. Because you think about it, you're paying about, if your fuel is at $3 a gallon right now, about 50 or 60 cents of that is tax. So, I mean, it's not going to lower it back down to zero. You're always going to, even if you get way better fuel mileage, you get to above a certain range, on IFTA and everything else, you're not going to get a credit. You're going to actually get a charge, because you're not buying as much fuel. I mean, I've run into that before with FedEx, whereas they charged me for getting too fuel efficient, and I had to pay more tax. I had a tax penalty on me because I didn't buy enough fuel in certain states, and then I had to do a tax differential on that. So there's a lot of aspects of this that you got to take in consideration. I mean, we're not, I've had people say, "Oh yeah, you get the electric truck, then you'll save all that fuel." Well, yeah, you're saving fuel, you're saving fossil fuel, but there's still going to be a cost associated with that, either the charging or something. Somewhere along the line, you're going to be paying for that, and then the government, I think, they're probably going to be puzzled on how they're going to tax it. Because they will tax it. They will get paid. They will charge you per mile. Like Brian said, they will charge you per mile for road usage, basically, because you're going to help pay for the repair of that road, whether you like it or not. And they do it through taxes. And so either you'll have a huge tax bill at the end of a quarter, or you'll pay it on a weekly basis, or you'll pay it at the charging station. I don't know how they're going to do this, but first off, they're going to have these charging stations just like they have truck stops. Now, the bad thing about it is you're looking at, they're saying 30 minutes to charge one of these semis. Well, the bad thing about that is, how many charging stations would you have to be able to accommodate if you had even a third of the amount of trucks you got out there on the road now? If they were electric, you would have to have a huge amount of charging stations to be able to charge these trucks. And the other thing is, what's the cost of these charging stations? And will these truck stops, who are the only places you can go to get them at this point, I would imagine, are they going to use that much real estate to have charging stations? They're going to have to weigh against their costs what it's going to be, and how much it's going to tie up their square footage of what they're trying to sell and use. Yeah, Well, and you know what you're getting now. I don't know if y'all have noticed. Some of these truck stops are charging people to stay overnight now. You can't even stay. I believe is it Flying J or one of them. They're in different parts of the location of the United States. You can't stay overnight in their parking lot unless you've paid a fee or filled up a truck, or there's a lot of different aspects. I've seen different things skewed in. Other words, if you pull in and you fill up your truck, then you can park there overnight. I think that's some of the aspect. Or if you pay them a overnight stay, I mean they're going to start getting you like a motel. It's real estate's getting tight in that respect. Yeah, it's like what JC's saying. Basically, the trucks, you know, the cost of the truck, the cost of doing business is probably going to stay close to the same. I don't foresee it getting cheaper just because there's a just because you switch from fossil fuel to electric fuel. I don't see the cost of the trucking industry going down. It's going to divert things away from fossil fuel. Fossil fuel may, I mean, if you got enough of them out there, but you think about some of the power plants and everything. Well, how are they powered? Either coal or fossil fuel. So you're unless we got solar panels everywhere, and you know, and I know there are a lot of solar farms out there. I mean, there's several huge solar farms in South Carolina. North Carolina is getting to be big into solar farms. But there again, we're taking up real estate, and real estate is going to be the key to it. We don't make any more land. You know, so you know, we're looking at all these different aspects. But you know, we've got to Square Body. I put you on as a moderator there too. Give you a blue tool so I can keep up with you there. Yeah, yeah, that's right. If they could tax a sailboat, they would, wouldn't they? And you know that's the way the government's going to run. I mean that's it in a nutshell. We're going to the old saying. There's two things you're never going to avoid: it's death and taxes. You know, so we can't get around either one of those. It's been here forever, and it's going to stay there too. I mean, you know, you go back to the founding fathers, all the way back to when we started the United States. One of the biggest fights was over tax. The Boston Tea Party, you know, that was the taxation without representation type situation. Yeah, you know, it's a crazy situation what we've got, but you know, I hadn't heard that one, JC. That's the other thing. Yeah, death and taxes and the honeydew list the wife gives you. Yeah, that is true. That is true. That's for sure. I mean, you get into a, you know, it's tough. But I would like to, you know, when the big trucks get into the electric mode, if I'm still around, still in trucking, I wouldn't mind experimenting with that. I don't want to be the first guinea pig because the first couple are going to be the ones that are going to tell you the tale of what's going wrong. I would like to be second generation of that maybe. And I think there's going to be a couple that jump out there quick. But once they do that and they can get the infrastructure, I mean, that's the key to it. Unless you can build your own infrastructure and that, you know, you got your truck going from point A to point B and at point B, you're going to have a charging station, and either you control it or you got somebody that will let you charge at it. You're going to be hung with it. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, when you start your own business and you get to pay all your own unemployment tax and everything else, Matt. Yeah, it's fun times. It's fun times. But remember, always try to pay yourself something, because you can't wait and say, "Well, I'll just take it out of the business." I mean, you can, but you need to let the business pay you as you go, and not cheat yourself. What's that? Okay, I hadn't. I'm not. I had to look in that, Ponka. Now we've got the cameras and everything all over our trucks, but you know the the cameras, as far as aid, if they aid driving, that's one thing. If they take over driving, that's another. And I don't think they're going to take. I just don't think with the insurance companies are going to dictate that, because what insurer is going to want to give full reign of a autonomous vehicle? I think autonomous assisted, you might say. I guess I don't even know if that's proper connotation to it, but I think a driver assisted truck would probably be the first thing you'd see. But I don't think we're going to see a full autonomous vehicle anytime. Probably never in my lifetime. I don't think. Uh, and in you guys' lifetime, I think it's on out there a few years. Uh, but it is what it is on that, and I think we're gonna. Yeah, well, the only difference between planes and autopilots uh, is the planes are not running in as close proximity as we are. I mean, they are, I guess, when they're landing and a few things like that. And you've only got so many major carriers. I mean, you think about trucking industry. I mean, you've got a ton of different carriers, and are they going to risk? Uh, are they going to risk an autonomous vehicle? Uh, you know, I, I think there's just too much involved. I mean, think about it. Planes are only major carrier planes out there flying amongst themselves primarily. Now there are some independent planes. I understand that, but in comparison to the major carriers and the small planes that are out there, it's a lot different than if you look at the trucking industry. The trucking industry, you've got a lot of trucks out there, but look how many cars that are privately owned that are out there amongst the trucks at the same time. If you had that many private planes running side by side of major carriers and airlines, and you know that the major carrier, the small planes and the large planes are restricted in different airspaces. Uh, that's not the case. What we have in the trucking industry. I mean, you've got everybody running in the same location. I mean, for instance, if we had all trucks on an interstate by themselves and no cars going in those areas, I think it would run more efficient and won't run better. Is that going to happen? No, it's not. They may get truck restricted lanes, and they may get car restricted lanes in some certain areas, and actually in certain areas they do have a little bit of that. I mean, you do see these express lanes that maybe have just buses or whatever, and those type things. And you may see some of that in the future, but when we're trying to run autonomous vehicles amongst all these independent cars, I think that's a far bigger challenge than you do for autopilot planes. Different, different, different situation altogether, I think. Yeah, I think everybody ought to be excited for the future. Paco, we're talking about the future. I like thinking about the future. I mean, even technology. I've always been a technology nut. I like having the latest equipment. I like having, good microphones. I like to have good computers. I like to be able to have a good conversation among people, and to think that I'm able to do what I'm doing right now and talk to people, meet people that I've talked to, uh, different situations like that. I think it's just amazing. And, just a year ago, I didn't know who J.C. Smith was. Now, J.C. Smith and I have been conversing. We have met. We have done business together and a few things like that. That would have not happened 10 years ago or 5 years ago, basically. Uh, and to be able to do that and to meet up and be able to uh, do what we've done in the past so many years is amazing to me. Well, and that's true too, Chris. I like to. I don't daydream about the future. I like seeing that the all the different technology that's coming down. I mean, I do hate we lost somebody like uh, Steve Jobs, who was he was a good thinker. He I don't Steve Jobs. I don't know if you've there's one comedian I'm trying to think of what his name is. He talks about Jobs and he talks about everybody talks about him being like Edison and Tesla. And well, he really wasn't like some of these other earlier inventors. Steve Jobs didn't invent things. He had people to invent it for him. If you go back to even the early history of Apple Computer, Steve Jobs was a thinker, but Steve Wozniak was the doer. Or as I like to call him, the Woz. Steve Wozniak was the actual guy that soldered the boards together. He put all the computer parts together. But he will tell you himself, if it hadn't been for Steve Jobs as a good thinker and knowing what they wanted to do, things wouldn't have got done. Steve Jobs, uh, he was he actually didn't invent the things himself. He hired the people to follow through with his dream, and so does uh, at Tesla too. I mean, uh, Elon Musk. He's a little bit like Steve Jobs, and I'm glad to see we've got people like that that think big and that are able to come together with some things. I wish I had the money backing that some of these guys had. I'd like to take some of my ideas and run with it. I do as much as I can with what I've got. And sometimes my wife says I think too far outside the box sometimes anyway. But I like thinking outside the box. I like thinking about what's in the future for me and what I can do in the future and just be one step ahead of the next guy. I mean, if you do that, I think you're doing a pretty good job. Yeah, the trick to the government is make sure you got deep enough pockets that they don't empty you completely out. So look up Stone Ridge if you get a chance. Okay, I'll do that, Ponka. I'll do that. Yeah. Well, you know, it's tough out here trying to. It's tough to make a living out here. Sometimes, I mean, you got to work it 7 days a week. These people that feel like that they're gonna have just a 5 day work week, and I mean that's fine if if that's what you're after. If you're at a plateau that you like and you can work 5 days and take off 2 or 3, that's fine. I'm not geared that way myself personally. I'm thinking 7 days a week what I can do. I don't I don't take a day off as far as my mind is concerned. I mean, I've got a lot of projects this afternoon. As soon as I get off, I've got several projects I've got to do today. So that's the way I think. Now, is that for everybody? No, not really. Not everybody can do it or take it. And I, for me personally, that's how I feel like I'm successful is the fact that I get out there and work every single day, just like uh, I think I've said in the past. I had a teacher when I was about the 8th grade. They gave me one bit of information. I don't know where it came from. There's some great thinker thought of it. He says, you got to work like you're going to live forever, but you got to live like you may die tomorrow. And and that philosophy to me is about as good as it gets because you want to live your life like if you die tomorrow, that everything's in place, that you've made peace with your Lord, you've everything that you're ready to do is in order. But you got to work like you're going to live forever because there may come a point in time that you're going to have to fall back on what you worked for. And I don't want to be a burden to society, my children, or anything else. So I'm going to continue working. I'm at retirement age. People ask me, why haven't I retired? I just haven't. I'm going to continue on until they put the last bit of dirt on me. Uh, I'm not going to. I'm not going to give up. I don't want to. I think it keeps my mind sharper. I think it keeps me happier, and I think that I'm going to be a better person for it by getting out there and working as hard as I can every single day. Do I like relaxing? Yeah, I relax sometimes. I'm not one to lay out on the beach that much. I've got a place at the beach. My wife likes to go down there. We like to walk around the beach. I like to do different things when I'm down there, but I'm not one to sit around on a. You won't see me carry a chair out to the beach to set out in the sun. Not going to happen. Just not my. I might walk up and down the beach. I might move around down there, but I will not sit down at the beach. Never have, never will. And it's just not my nature. I'm catching up with the other gossip over here. I like to read and make sure JC and Matt and all of them dad, and they're way over here other area, and I'm over here on another area. I try to be a good person. I'm not a uh, so-called ultra religious person. I do have my beliefs and everything, and we're talking about that a little bit. Uh, I try to be a good person. I try to treat people fairly, and I have my own opinions about established religious situations, and I have my opinion of the good and the bad and the ugly of that too. And that's for me to live with. And I think everybody ought to do that internally themselves. I mean, you've got to. I don't want to preach. I don't want to preach to anyone, and I don't like actually. And I have my brother-in-law is a minister, um, and I probably get run down for the fact that I'm not a regular participant of church services. And there's reasons behind that. One, my business requires me. I mean, I've been on the phone a lot this morning, and now I'm on this, but I will have other issues, and the regulated church is tough for me to do, and it's not really something that I want to do. I do it as I please, and you know, uh, I guess everybody has their own opinion of that. Yeah, yeah. I'm like JC. I'm gonna do the best I can with what I've got and what I can do to provide for my family. And after I'm gone, I've given it my best shot, and I hope everybody will pick up the pieces and put everything together. Uh, I've talked to my children and my wife, and hopefully they will carry on in some capacity after I'm gone. I hope I'm around a lot of years, so I won't be worried about that situation for a good while yet. Although I've outlived my father, I will tell you that my father passed away at 65, and it's sort of eye eye opening when you pass that uh, plateau or whatever. I mean, I thought at the time I felt like my father was an older man and everything else. I knew he had lived a long life, and then after I passed that age, I go, gosh, my dad didn't live that long, and I've thought about that numerous times after I passed that plateau, and it's something to really think about. Yeah, I'm the same way, Matt. I like to let everybody, you know, religion and politics make strange bedfellows, as they say. And, I don't like to mix it. I mean, everybody was raised at a certain level of belief and whatever, and I think they all should. I'm not judgmental about anybody. If a person loves to go, and my mother-in-law goes to every time the church doors are open, she's there. My daughter takes her to a lot of these events and everything, and I'm thankful that they can do that. Uh, it's just not something that I'm going to do, and I hope I'm not judged badly because of that in the future and everything. I try to live my life as a decent person and as somebody that's not going to be a mean person or a bad person and do bad things. So hopefully I will be judged in that manner when Judgment Day comes, uh, as opposed to, yeah, I made the 7:30 service at this time or did this and did that. You know, to me, uh, that's the average person putting a scale out there of what I should do, as opposed to what I actually would believe in. And so I guess that's some of my philosophy on that. So, don't judge me and I won't judge you on what you believe in. And that's about as much as I like to say about it, because we're all different. We all have different ideas about things like that. And, if you want to uh, be a very religious person in the aspect that you go, but I know everybody, and I will put this one thing out. Everybody has seen the people that want to be the top dog at the church, and they want their peers to appreciate the fact that they're the top dogs at the church on attendance, on church committees, whatever the case may be. And if that's their life, that's fine. They can do that. But sometimes these are the harshest critics in the church. They're going like, Oh, I didn't see you at church last week. Well, that's because I wasn't there. I could have told you that. And they guilt people, and it's sort of that type of situation. I mean, when I want to go to church, I go to church. When I don't want to go to church, I don't go to church. That's my conviction, and I hope people will let me live with that. Uh, so when it comes to religion, that's about as much as I need to say. And I don't care if you're. I mean, I was raised as a Baptist. My wife is a Lutheran, and I was, baptized in the Lutheran church too. And when we got married, uh, certain aspects of it I like, certain aspects I don't like. Same way with the Baptists. I mean, when you're raised as a certain Protestant or Catholic or Jewish belief or whatever, you're going to be indoctrinated as a youth, and you're going to believe that stronger probably at any one point in your life. Whatever you were taught from the early ages on up is probably what you're going to stick to with a general belief, and so that's kind of where I'm at. Yeah, and I agree with you, Matt. I mean, I don't talk about religion. This is probably the most talked about episode I've ever talked out here because I don't like being preachy, as I would say it. I mean, that is not as my goal in life. Period. So I'm gonna have to. Her grandmother's a diehard Catholic. You know, like I said, there's a lot of good aspects to it, and the thing that has actually probably turned me away from religion. And we live down here in this area. I don't know how many people remember the PTL club, Jim Baker and the PTL, and that was just a few miles from where I'm at right down here. That was at Fort Mill, South Carolina, which is not more than 35, 40 miles from here. And I saw so much of that and was turned off so badly because of what they did. And now we see other churches that are trying to do similar to that. And that aspect of religion really turns me off. And that's about as much as I can say about that. I hope I'm not offending anybody, and I don't ever try to offend anybody in that with the religion, but I don't want to be involved with a mega church. Uh, there's mega reasons I don't want to be involved with mega churches. Uh, I, I think the most humbling religious episodes I've ever seen have been some of the old country churches. Uh, my granddaddy Jones was in an old country church. He was raised in one, and I really felt good about going to that because I could really see the people were really felt good about their religion. And my mother's side of the family, I went to a funeral one time up in Tennessee, and I was really taken back about that community and how they felt, and even at a funeral and people getting up and speaking. Uh, my uncle D had passed away, uh, and people got up and spoke about him and different things, and very salt of the earth type people, and those things were very eye opening to me. But the glorified mega church got bands and videos and everything like that going all over the place. It's not for me. I can't see that, and so that's where I'm gonna go on that. Yeah, I did. I had a good friend that worked at a radio station in Charlotte, and when PTL was big, he was the guy that came on, and he was brother Bill Taker instead of Jim Baker. They made fun of the PTL, and he was brother Bill Taker. which was funny in its aspect too, because they were money grabbers, and and for him to come on that. But I always thought that was funny, and it was the satire that came down with that was something else. Well, guys, I'm gonna get off. I've been on here a long time this morning. I've enjoyed chatting with everybody. I hope everybody can put up with me as much as they can, and I enjoy the crowd that we get in here. But I'm gonna get off. I've got a lot of things I got to get done today. We got to line up a lot of things for Napa. So y'all take care. I'll check y'all around later. I'll be back over here next Sunday, hopefully, God willing, and the creek don't rise.